This question is in relation to the youth sector, Minister. And it's just there's been a shortfall in volunteers for the youth sector, given that they heavily rely on volunteer hours, and many services are now facing closure due to a serious shortfall of properly trained volunteers for the sector. Thanks.
Minister.
Thanks, Deputy. Look, I can't overstate the significance and the value of the contributions made by volunteers to the community life of our country and to supporting our most vulnerable. And in the youth sector, the work of some 40,000 volunteers has been absolutely key to maintain the ability of youth work organisations to function effectively prior to the pandemic. And I provided an increase of €5 million in funding for youth services in 2021, bringing funding from my department to €66.8 million this year. And in 2020, I also provided once-off funding of €1.3 million to provide youth services with COVID and IT-related costs. And each year, my department funds universally focused, volunteer-led youth work through the Youth Services Grant Scheme. And a number of national youth organisations will benefit from over €12 million in funding under this scheme in 2021. This represents a 6% increase over the funding provided in 2020. And I really believe that youth work carried out by these volunteer groups is absolutely transformative for young people. And additionally, the local youth club grant support scheme supports volunteer-led youth work activities at a local level, and the funding for this scheme increased by 7% to €2.3 million in 2021, and this scheme supports 1,400 clubs or groups nationwide. And I've consistently recognised the significant role that the youth sector plays in the lives of young people today, and the extremely valuable role that volunteers play in this. And given the strong commitment of our volunteers, I'm very hopeful that as public health matters improve, as more people are vaccinated, and as youth organisations are better positioned to support volunteers once again, we will see volunteers returning. Obviously, the Deputy will be aware that youth funding was maintained through the COVID-19 restrictions and a lot of supports provided. And as the phased reopening progresses, it's of the utmost importance that youth work organisations are supported to restore their voluntary positions. And just finally to say, Deputy, my officials are currently considering proposals to redistribute some time-related savings in the youth budget to assist services on a once-off basis in this financial year.
Kathleen Funchion.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Minister. And I do welcome the increase that was made last year, and I think everybody in the youth sector welcomed it. And to a certain extent, I know you're new in the role, but I suppose they would also argue that their funding had been significantly reduced since probably around 2008, and they hadn't seen an increase. So a lot of this money is literally just sort of, kind of to play catch up, and they're not even sort of caught up. I actually just had meetings recently with some of the youth organisations like the National Youth Council and Feroga, and they were just making that point that they do need it to be acknowledged that there was such cuts for so many years, and they really do need additional funding to try and play catch up with that. And I suppose I was surprised as well to find out that they are struggling so much with volunteers. But then when you look at the situation with the pandemic and everything that's happened and everything, I just think that it's really important that they're given every help and opportunity. I totally agree that it's such an important sector, and they play a role in so many parts of young people's lives. It's really, really vital, and the work they do often sort of goes under the radar and maybe unnoticed, and it's sort of only when a service is gone people say that was an excellent service. So it's just really important that we can sustain all of those services for young people. Thanks, Chair.
Minister.
Thanks, Deputy. Well, look, I can absolutely assure you that their huge role doesn't go unnoticed by me or my department. We feel very passionately about supporting youth services. You're absolutely right. During the economic crisis, their funding was cut back dramatically, and it had a huge impact. I know we're playing catch up. I think this year I was able to, I suppose, make a good show of mine and the department's good faith in terms of giving that substantial increase, actually a little bit more than they've been looking for. I will do my best in future budgets to continue to grow that amount of money. I obviously can't say at every stage, but that's certainly my attention. Like yourself, I've met regularly with both the the national advocacy groups, individual groups, and indeed local groups in my own area. I met with our local Oireachtas group only last Friday. So look, I think there is very good engagement between myself and the department and the sector. I think they'd recognise that as well. And look, we've continued to support them during COVID, and we'll support them coming out of COVID as well.
Funchion, your final supplementary.
Thanks, Chair, and I'll be brief in this part. No, I do acknowledge that there has been work done, and I suppose it's just we're getting the speak in for them now at this stage, because obviously budget negotiations are going to be upcoming, and they are a sector, I think, that not even I understand that yourself and a lot of people do acknowledge the work that they do, but I just think it's really important that we keep the focus. Or what I love about the various youth groups is the range of activities that they do. They obviously are involved in sport, but they're involved with loads of things. And I know I regularly speak, and I'm a massive advocate for like the Young Irish Filmmakers. I think they're an excellent group, and they're tied in with them. And there's just such a range of activities for young people out there that they provide that people may be potentially a bit lost in their communities if they weren't there providing those activities that are so important for young people. And I particularly like the fact that they have a wide range, and that I know sport is important, but they don't just only focus on that. And I think it makes it very inclusive, and I think it makes it feel like all young people, there's something for everybody. And I think that's really important, and I would love to see all of that continue. They're obviously under pressure, so the extra money or anything they can get, it is actually just catch-up money, and I just think it's important that we continue that. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, everybody. Minister.
Well, look, we did research with spunout.ie, as you know, last year, and it indicated that those young people who were engaging with youth services during the pandemic actually did better. Their mental health, their optimism was increased, so I'm very aware, and we have the research to prove their impact. I know that for a lot of these groups, their fundraising, or indeed maybe their fees, their capitation has really badly been impacted. So even though we've been putting in more, they've been getting less on other sides. So as I said to you earlier on, we have a small amount of money that was unspent in the department due to time-related issues, and we are just looking to see, can we give on a once-off basis a little additional support to some of these groups, recognising the huge role that they play. And again, I think even though it's just a once-off for this year, it is further acknowledgement by myself and the department of the huge role they play and the importance of supporting them, not just saying it, but actually delivering those important resources too.